So this year marks 10 years that I've been teaching art. Many of you have taken several of my workshops and tutorials that I have over on my Gumroad channel, and hey, I'm sure none of you ever make art mistakes. Okay, I know you guys, you got it on lock. But for those of you who may not know what something is missing from your art or something that you could improve upon, well, I see a lot of portfolios, I see a lot of art, and these are the top 5 mistakes that I see other artists making in the early in their journey. All of these come back to the fundamentals, the basics of drawing that everybody likes to skip. Starting with calculating cast shadows. Now, sometimes you can fake this, but as a general rule, you want to be pretty consistent with your cast shadows, and that means practicing sometimes those things that you see me teaching, like in my easy art lessons, about just casting shadows on spheres and how those spheres and those odd shapes will cast a shadow onto a surface. And there's a mathematical way to calculate this, but it doesn't have to be all stuffy, wow, that's all science. No. It can actually be quite fun. And that's the whole point of those easy art lessons, which, by the way, you're going to see a lot of as I'm discussing these common mistakes that people make. And that's the whole reason I made the easy art lessons, is because a lot of times people don't know why their drawings are messed up or why they're not working. Casting shadows essentially requires that you have an understanding of the direction that the light is coming from and that the surface that it is being projected onto. And this can get more complicated as you dig in deeper, and as you get into the minutia of, surfaces that are bumpy or surfaces that are at an angle. And if you don't have a sort of a 3D model of the object in your mind, and if you've not developed that skill, then this is something you have to practice. You have to get back to drawing these basic cubes and basic blocks and spheres, primitive shapes, so that you can add to that knowledge as you progress through your journey. The second biggest mistake that I see is in perspective. A lot of times, many artists will either they jump from 1-point perspective to 5-point fisheye or something else that's off the scale because they think that'll be impressive. And the fact is that a lot of times you can do a lot with just a simple 3-point perspective. And it's not a bad thing to just practice drawing things like guns and barrels and chests and houses. Structures specifically are absolutely incredible practice for getting down basic 3-point perspective. A lot of times, if you're having trouble figuring out, like, well, does this windowsill, does that go in line back towards this vanishing point or that vanishing point? Practicing these basic buildings, just basic structures, homes, gas stations, buildings, modern architecture, all these things can really help you with just getting a basic grasp of, where to put the camera, how you're even controlling the camera in a sense of 3D space. It actually helps to get a little bit of basic experience with something like Blender 3D, which is a 3D program. Just doing some basic gray boxing of environments and then plopping in a character will give you a whole different view of how you can project putting a character into an environment. Mistake number 3 is really probably the most common, and that is that a lot of times artists will just not draw their underlying drawing, their foundational structure of their characters, of their environments. Like, everything starts out as a block, a primitive shaped block, or a blocked out armature if you're doing characters, but you need to draw through and don't dig in right away into the details. Like, if your character's eyes are not symmetrical, get back to drawing the underdrawing, man. Draw out your guides. Even if that takes you a long time, draw out your guides. That way you won't have mistakes like a character's arm that isn't lined up when it goes behind something, or you won't have issues with a character not looking symmetrical or balanced. Oftentimes I'll spend more time just on the sketch, the underdrawing, than I will on the actual drawing itself, because you have to get your composition down, you have to get your planned perspective down, you have to get your forms turning in space, and you need to get your symmetry of your characters, especially if you're doing characters. You have to get all these things in place and plan out your drawing before you really put in tons and tons of time trying to get that perfect hair or perfect reflection or perfect, whatever it is. A lot of times people get obsessed with things that are not important. They're not important at all. That's the biggest mistake that a lot of beginner artists will make, is not knowing what to focus on. Well, I'm telling you now, focus on the underdrawing, focus on those fundamentals of perspective and composition and anatomy. And that leads me into mistake number 4, which is that a lot of times artists will just find something that sort of works, and then they just keep repeating that. By the way, I'm not above this. I did this for many, many years. I'm talking from my own experience, and I'm telling you, here's how you break out of those routines. You have to do some studies, and that means studying anatomy. Right now in my easy art lessons, I'm just starting on lessons 26 through 30, and these are focused on the human torso. It's an anatomical breakdown. I'm digging into all the muscle groups, and I'm talking about how they flex, and I'm talking about how they intersect and how they connect, and then how you can draw them at any angle. If there's something where you're like, well, I don't really know, or you know, I can't really figure out how to draw the chest at this whatever angle. Like, this is how you study that. You basically have to break it down into its primitive forms, and then you have to understand how it's flexing. And that's the thing about the easy art lessons, is that they're really built upon the previous lessons. This is like a full-on course. It's not just a one-time thing that expects that you already know something. No. If you've gone through lessons 1 through 25, then you're already going to have all the understanding and information that you need to be able to draw and paint the human body. Well, up to the torso anyway. Well, the plan is to add in a lot more of these lessons to really get a strong foundation for anatomy and painting skills. This also covers a lot of painting techniques for getting skin and lighting flesh tones and things like that too. But again, it's all designed to bring you from absolutely no drawing skill up to the level that you're seeing on the screen. Mistake number 5 is not putting your artwork out there for other people to judge and to see and to give feedback, and sometimes taking it a little too personally. The psychology of a beginner should primarily be to have fun, accept that you're a beginner, accept that you don't know some things yet. It's not something that you're just inherently born with. Nobody's inherently born with knowledge of how to build rockets. You have to learn and study it. You can't just immediately grasp foreign languages. Sometimes it's hard, it's brutal, it's challenging, and it's okay to make mistakes as you're learning. And so the psychology of this needs to be that you almost separate yourself and your personal value, your personal worth, and the amount of time you've put into it and what you expect of yourself. Separate all of that with just enjoying the process of being on the journey itself. And so often I see beginners getting just frustrated because they're not getting the results that they want, instead of just enjoying it. And then when you look at a beautiful painting, instead of thinking, oh, I can't do that, I'm just so frustrated, instead of building this negative dialogue in your mind, instead look at it and go, oh man, I'm so eager. I can't wait to get to the point where I can do that. And oh man, there must be a way. And that's kind of what I'm here for. That's what I'm really trying to do with my channel, is to bridge that gap where anything that you see me do here on my YouTube channel, I will show you how to do in my workshops and tutorials. I wasn't born with art skill. I didn't go to art school. I didn't spend tons and tons of money on equipment and high-end gear, and I wasn't spoiled rotten with, you know, some kind of college degree or some golden road that was laid out before me. It was a really tough challenge. So I know what you're going through. I know how hard it is to develop these skills, and I'm going to shortcut all of that for you. That is what I've made it my life's goal. And you've been very good to me, and so I'm trying to be very good to the world, man. I'm putting good vibes out there, and they're coming back to me tenfold, and I appreciate all of you, and I really hope that you have all the greatest success that you can with your art and with your creative goals, whether that's learning to make comic books or storytelling, storyboarding, or making animations, whatever that goal is, or even if it's just to follow in my footsteps and work in video games. Man, I wish you all the greatest success in the world, and I want to help you to get there. In fact, right now I'm running a big sale on all of my workshops, so you can use the code on the screen above to get a sweet discount. And these days I'm still doing one video a week at least. So don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, ciao.